Stick around, ladies and gentlemen, because today we're knocking out smothered cabbage. Get your pot heated up. All right, so we're going to set this on a medium heat. Just let things get heated. Now, over at our prepping area, it's time to get crack-a-lackin'. Starting to my left here, I have 1 head of cabbage. Then I've got a pound of smoked tasso, which is smoked ham. It's seasoned very well and smoked, very popular in Cajun Creole culture. I've got my paella seasoning, and I've got 1 yellow onion. And I'm going to get this diced up first. Choo! Paella! Oh boy. Y'all try not to tell my wife about this one. All right, guys, we got our onions off to the side. And our tasso here, we're just going to cut it up into some chunks. Just like that. All right, to our hot pot, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil. We're going to make sure that spreads evenly. Once the bottom of the pot is coated, we're going to drop in our tasso. And we're just going to brown this up a little bit. So we're just searing this up a little bit here so we can incorporate some of the flavor of the tasso into this pot right here. And then we'll add our onion in and we'll break it all up and cook the onion down for like 20 minutes. So look, if you can't get your hands on some tasso, just use whatever smoked ham you can get your hands on. Or use a pork sausage. It will work well in this recipe as well. Whatever you want to do to jazz this thing up, you do it. Trust me. All right, so we've been browning up for about 5 minutes here. I'll go ahead and scoop all this out now and put it in a bowl off to the side. Just gonna get it all out of there. Now that we got the tasso out, we drop in our onion. And we get all that in there. Start moving this around, breaking up that bottom. These onions are gonna help to glaze the bottom of this pan here, pot, what have you. And it'll bring some life to our onions as well, some color. Looking good here. We've been doing this for a couple minutes now, and as you can see, the onions have pulled up everything from the bottom, and they're getting a little brown there too, which is great. We want a little bit of color to our onions. Just going to keep cooking these down for roughly 20 minutes, maybe 25, and until they're nice and tender. You want them real soft. You don't want crunchy onions and smothered cabbage. Trust me. So while my onions are cooking, I'll also get working on my cabbage. I'm going to first cut it halfway down the middle, right through the stem here, just right down the middle. There we go. And next I'll cut each of them right down the middle right here. There we go. Next, I will cut around this middle area right here, downward, to get rid of this heart of the cabbage on all of them. I'm not going to need that part. That part's kind of hard. Some people like to save it for stocks, soup, what have you. But for me, I'm just going to get rid of it. All right, and from here, I just slice up my cabbage. And there we go. All right, our onions are looking nice and brown here. Now look, if you got some browning like this on the bottom, don't be alarmed. Just add a little bit of cold water here. And look at the browning. Ah, I love that. Look at that, breaks it right up. Breaks it right up. Add some color to your onions. It'll be just fine. Just keep cooking. This is looking really good. So the last few minutes here, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. There we go. Which is probably roughly 3 cloves of garlic if you want to do that. As you can see, that's helping break up some bottom right there, and great flavor. I love garlic, as do most people down in South Louisiana. We're just going to incorporate that in for a couple minutes. Looking good. All right, so our onions are cooked down, garlic's incorporated. We're going to add 1 14.5-ounce can of some chicken broth. I'm going to add a little bit first just to break up the bottom, and then I'll add the rest of it. Very nice. Okay, let's pour the rest of it in. Going to add back in our tasso. Next, I will add 1 tablespoon of paya seasoning, or your favorite Cajun or Creole seasoning, ladies and gentlemen. It still works. Let's go ahead and blend that around here. Incorporate that flavor. All right, from here we'll drop in our cabbage. And I know we got a lot of it. So we're just going to try to fold this around a little bit here, just kind of get the flavors to kind of touch as much of the cabbage as we can in the beginning. I'm going to tell you, look, in the beginning here, you're just going to have to cook down the bottom and then keep rotating. This is about an hour-long process from here. I'm just kind of getting it stirred right here, and then I'll increase the heat so I can see like maybe a slight boil. I'll cover it, and then we'll just simmer and come back and flip it around every 5 to 10 minutes. All right, that's looking good from there. So let's go ahead and increase the heat here, raise it up to a high heat. Once we know it's kind of boiling, we'll really have to kind of look around in there, but once we see that, that's when we'll cover it, lower it, and let it cook. All right, you can see it's boiling down there. You can even hear it. At this point, I cover it up, lower to a simmering heat, and we'll cook this for 1 hour, but we're gonna come back and keep rotating it, probably every 5 to 10 minutes. All right, so it's been about 8 minutes here, and not much will change in the beginning, so trust me, do not be alarmed. But you'll see if you start lifting, you can see some of this cabbage down here is actually kind of cooking a little bit. So that's why we want to move this around, so that way everything can start to cook evenly. Smells so good. All right, once we flipped, we will go ahead and cover back up and just keep letting this simmer. Just to let you guys know, for me, I like to get some rice going after about 20 minutes of cooking. I like my smothered cabbage over a little bit of rice. It's delightful. All right, so I got about 10 minutes left of smothering down, and as you can see, this is looking really good. All right, so for the final 10 minutes, I'm gonna leave the lid off so I can evaporate some of the water that's in here. That's really gonna bring out the flavor in the smothered cabbage. I'm gonna raise the heat a little bit as well since the lid is off. And there's Hazel. Hey, Hazel. And since the lid is off, we wanna raise the heat a little bit so that way we can kind of maintain a slight boil, still cook down the remaining harder pieces of cabbage in here, and it should all come together. So this is what you're looking for right here, just some slight boiling there, and water is evaporating. We're gonna continue to cook that down for the final 10 minutes and go from there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is pretty much done here. I mean, that is smothered cabbage. Beautifully cooked, very tender. Now look, if you want your cabbage even more tender than this, you just keep on cooking it and it will get more tender, but eventually there's a crossing point between tender and mushy. So now look, what I like to do here is, you see all this juice right here, I kind of want that to be somewhat of a gravy, So what I did here is I made this little cornstarch slurry, which is a tablespoon of cornstarch and very small amount of cold water. So I'm gonna push that aside and I'm gonna gradually add this in here, bring that around that way. Get some more of this liquid there. Pour it in again. There we go. And just mix that all around. And this should kind of thicken things up a little bit for me. And that way it kind of becomes a gravy. You can kind of even see see how it's separating a little bit slower now? That's what you want. And the amount of cornstarch you use will determine how thick your gravy is. Also, as this water continues to evaporate, it will also thicken up from there too. But all in all, this is good. I'm ready to plate up.
Yeah. All right, y'all, let's do a little run through. I'm gonna start it off humming. Home. All right, here we go.
That's the stuff right there. Whoo, man. I just love the tender bite of cabbage after it's been cooked down. It's so good. It kind of reminds me of like smothered onions, but you know, it has its own unique flavor. And the thing about cabbage is it really soaks up whatever you use to season it with. So, you know, in this case, I probably went kind of mild on the seasoning. I know you've seen me put a whole tablespoon in there, but that is a lot of cabbage, you know, and then you have the liquid and what have you. Plus, there could be some people who make this with a sausage or even bacon. If you use bacon, you're gonna really add a lot of flavor to this. So, all in all, I'm really hungry and this smells delicious. So let's go ahead and get a bite. We're gonna bite just cabbage and rice here, and oh, that looks wonderful. Look at that. My mouth is watering. I know I say this every video, but it's because I genuinely am hungry. Oh, it's so good. It's just so tender, but it's juicy. The seasoning gives it this perfect blend of saltiness and spice. You know, it's what you'll typically get with any Cajun or Creole seasoning. And then the rice gives it that carb that gives you that fullness of a bite. So when you take a bite, you feel satisfied. Man, that's so good. I mean, this is just a meal in itself, you know. Oftentimes, a smothered cabbage is kind of a side dish, but you can literally make this a meal right here. You're gonna get a bite of tasso with some cabbage. Oh, so good. Having cooked down like that, the tasso gets really tender. It's almost like a piece of pork roast. You know, I've said that before. It's really unique in flavor and it has a very tender bite when it's cooked down. Delicious. Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Smothered cabbage. We've knocked it out. I hope you give it a try. I hope you like it. And, you know, tweak it to your liking, you know, tweak it to however you like to eat smothered cabbage. You know, some people even like shrimp in their smothered cabbage. And if that's the case, you know, add you some raw shrimp there right in that last little 10-minute section, and they'll be ready to go whenever you're done, you know, adding the cornstarch to kind of thicken the juices in there. Anything else you want to do too, just go ahead and add it in there, feel free. I appreciate you guys as always. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.
TV don't mean that much to me, but I got higher definition in my reality. What's up?